Is it recording?
Yeah. So go up.
That didn't
That's our report.
resume recording. We're going to either have a lecture quiz on what we previously lectured. Every now and then, in a blue moon kind of situation, I will tell you, for whatever reason, we might not have gotten to have a lecture quiz. So I'll say, go back to the last 2 lectures and be ready for a lecture quiz. Everybody remembers what lecture quizzes look like? They're fill in the blank, describe, briefly discuss, those types of things. You either know them or you don't. And usually it's only 10 questions from the entire lecture. So I get that you know a lot more than you're getting to put down on those lecture quizzes, but what you should sort of intuit from that is that you need to know everything we talked about in the lecture, because you don't know what those 10 questions are going to be, right? So they usually take, 5 minutes, 7 minutes at the most. So we will know that the next time we meet, which is Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, there will be a lecture quiz on what we talk about today. And it will be anything that we talk about today, even if I do a little bit of a review this morning, which sort of hints to you that I'm going to, right? So make sure that we remember that it's anything that I talked about. If I ask you a lecture quiz question on something we didn't talk about, what will you all tell me as we're going over the lecture quiz? We didn't talk about that, and I'll throw that question out. So is that fair enough? Y'all will notice, those of you that were with me last semester, y'all notice that you're in Canvas now, which is a little bit different looking than Blackboard, but it should offer all of the functionality that Blackboard did. So today, after the lecture recording is a little bit different, it's called Zoom rather than Panopto, but it still will take a little while, and I'll try to have that up later this afternoon. The lecture recording, you don't have to go back and look at that. If you take good notes, then you're fine. But it would be there if you needed it, or if you had to miss. So you would know that the lecture recordings are going to try to have that for you each time. Also, at the end of lecture, by early afternoon, or actually it'll be a little bit later afternoon because I have a class right after this one. Some of y'all are with me in that. How many of you are with me in my micro class? Oh my goodness, okay. So we're all together a long time. But anyway, so I will have them up before I leave on Mondays and Wednesdays, a discussion board that has the date. And let's remember this. What you do in that discussion board is that you put just a quick study guide. I do not want more than 10 things that you sort of learn. And you can do it as factual statements, or you can write them as a quiz, like somebody does a quiz. And some of you will write tougher questions than I do, but you make yourself a study guide from the lecture that you had that day, right? And that's going to contribute to some of your grade. So I didn't give you a hard copy of this syllabus because you have this available on your Canvas, so, just to save some trees. But if there's any questions, this is up to you. This is a legally binding document. It is a contract that I have to adhere to, but it's a contract for our course. So it would be kind of silly of you not to read it well, so that you know what's expected of you in this course. And everything I just talked about with, as far as like that discussion board, you need to be doing those before we meet for the next class. And being prepared for lecture quizzes, it's all on here, isn't it? So it's all in here, you know that. I also have, it's not just me, it's the BCCS has regulations about absence and attendance. And so if it's a seated course, it wouldn't matter if you were missing 20% of the class and passing, I'd still have to fail you. That is a BCCS policy. I have never had someone missing that much that was passing. So that has never happened in my years here. But because, half the battle is being here and being ready and being prepared, correct? So, I've never had that happen. But just to let you know, you need to be here and be here on time. Because if you come in at 9:01, do you get to take the quiz? No, and it's a 0. So you can be late or you can be absent a couple of times this semester when there's a lecture quiz scheduled, and it won't hurt you because I have 2 drops in the contract that I tell you, and I'm not doing more than that this time. I did more than that last semester, but I'm not this time. I'm just letting you know that. A&P 2 is probably most people would consider the organ systems that we discuss in A&P 2 the ones that are going to be some of the most important for you during med surg or doing any sort of health or clinical field that you might go into. And I told you all that we would start the semester with which system? The endocrine system, and we'll follow it with the cardiovascular system, the lymphatic, respiratory, whatever. But this endocrine and cardiovascular system, it is the toughest part of A&P, period. And I'm just letting you know that now, just so that you will start strong, okay? So I need you to be aware of that, not to scare you, but to prepare you and let you know that if you were, sort of borderline last time for whatever reasons, some things have to change this time, right? So, because this first part is going to be the toughest part of A&P. And I just say that because that's what students tell me. And I kind of remember from my days in it, but I thought so as well. The good news is that once we get through the first 6 weeks or so after spring break, then it's actually the easiest part of A&P follows, okay? So you guys start off strong, please. Labs are anatomy. What does anatomy mean? What does anatomy mean? Lectures are mostly physiology, but what's anatomy? The study of form. The study of form and like where things are located. So if you saw organs, individual organs like, I don't know, livers laying on that table and hearts on that table, you would have had a name for them, right? You would have known their name and you would have even known where they should have been situated, right, in the body. So that's anatomy, and this is the easiest part of A&P 2 is the anatomy. And I want you all to take advantage of that and make sure that you use that percentage of those labs to make sure that that helps your grade in this class. If you all had paid attention last semester, and I'm sure you all did, and if you didn't, go back and look at it, your lab grades probably raised your class grade a letter grade. So that should happen again, and especially when I'm telling you that this is the easiest part of A&P 2. You don't have all those bones, and you don't have all those muscles to do this time. So let's say woohoo to that and be prepared to make sure that you're ready for every lecture quiz. Lecture quizzes are announced. So if you'll know when a lecture quiz is coming up, and I give you everything that's going to be on it. I'll tell you what's going to be on it, just like we did. Did we do that? Y'all tell the people that don't know me. Didn't I tell you what was going to be on the lab quizzes? Exactly. Okay. So anyway, they didn't say yes, but they meant to. So I absolutely do. So be prepared for them when you come in here and just do well on those because that can really help your grade. Any questions about that? So anatomy is the study of form and where those structures are located, and naming is really what that is. And what is physiology again? A study of how that form functions. Why do we study them together? Why does it make sense to study form and function together? Because what? Because anatomy dictates function. Structure always dictates function. It always does. At just a macroscopic level, just the ear, shell, directing like sound waves into the ear canal, just things that we can see, or things at even a microscopic level. At a microscopic level, structure always dictates function. At a molecular level, structure dictates function, didn't it? Do you remember the study of chemistry? What was the study of chemistry that we spent a lot of time on last semester? What was chemistry? What was that? The study of what? Come on. What'd you say there? Yes, you do. She does. Chemistry. What is chemistry? Come on, guys. Chemicals. What do you mean when you say that?
How other chemicals react to each other.
What'd you say?
How other chemicals react to each other.
With how chemicals react with each other. What's a chemical? Don't give a name to me unless you're going to be able to tell me what it is. What does that mean? A chemical. What does that mean? Y'all know what chemistry is. All right, let me wake everybody up here. When we start studying anatomy and physiology being the function of how a form is going to actually work, right? Study of how something works. When we do that, do we look at an organ and say, okay, let's figure out how this works? Or do we figure out what is an organ made of? And by the way, what is an organ made of? An organ is made of 2 or more tissue types. Do we remember that? So we got like the heart. Let's say the heart is made of 2 or more tissue types. Name the 4 tissue types, because y'all remember this. This was like yesterday. What are the 4 tissue types?
Cardiac.
Epithelial is one. Connective is another. Muscle and what? Nerve. Those are 4 tissue types. Make sure you know them for the quiz you're going to have Wednesday. So there are 4 tissue types: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nerve. And 2 or more tissue types come together to form organs. So, okay, we can start studying anatomy and physiology by studying tissue types. Is that right, Brittany? It is? So, but wait a minute. What do you know? Do you know the differences between epithelial and connective and muscle and nerve? What are they made of? What are tissues made of? Cells. Tissues are made of cells. How many different kinds of cells? Okay, this will be like pulling teeth. How many different types of cells are in the human body? More than 200, Janet says. Y'all like that? I think so too. More than 200 different kinds of cells. So cells come together to make up tissues. 2 or more tissue types that have very specialized functions come together to make up organs. Organs come together to make up organ systems. We're about to look at the endocrine system. Do you think it's just made of one organ? No, it's made of many organs that make up that organ system. And then organ systems like the endocrine, the cardiovascular, the respiratory, the digestive, the nervous system, they all come together to make the organism, right? Okay, so we're good. We know that cells come together to make up tissues. We better know something about some of those cells. But wait a minute. What are cells made of? They are made of molecules, but what we know cells are made of, cells are alive, aren't they? Cells are alive. That means that there's this animation, there's this work that's going on inside of cells. They don't take smoke breaks or weekend breaks. Cells are working 24/7, and to be able to work 24/7 by making products, it means that cells have to have a way to pull in nutrients from the external part of outside of the cell, and inside the cell change that to a usable form of energy. Cells are complex, aren't they? And cells are alive. We are made of trillions of cells. We are multi-celled organisms, just like plants and fungi, animals. We're made of these we're multicellular, more than 200 different kinds of cells, and they better all be working the way they're supposed to be working, or we're not in a state of what? Okay, thank you, Taylor. Come on, Taylor, come on. Okay. So we're not in a state of homeostasis. Another way, what does that mean? It means balance. It means that you're in a state of health. It means balance, health. It means that we understand that we're never in an environment that's staying static, that our environment's changing, so we better be able to change. And it means that things are always going up and down within their normal parameters, but you better stay in your normal parameters, not get too high, not to get too low of anything, or you're going to be out of a state of health. Is that right? And you're constantly changing everything from blood glucose levels to calcium levels to temperature, right? Would y'all agree with that? Yeah. So we understand that cells are amazing because they're the ones that are doing that for us, allowing us to stay in homeostasis. They are alive. They are working all the time. There's this amazing animation that's going on in cells. But what's inside of a cell? Can we just start learning cells and think, okay, we got this now? No, because you have to know what's inside of cells. And what's inside of cells, especially complex cells, are organelles. You remember organelles? Organelles. Know some examples of organelles: the nucleus, the endoplasmic reticulum, the mitochondria, the Golgi, right? Golgi, some people say. We remember those organelles, don't we? Do we? Are they alive? Are organelles alive? Well, maybe you know they're not because I just told you cells are the smallest things that are alive. So we've got these things inside of cells that aren't even alive, but they have very distinct functions. And what is causing them to have very separate functions? What's causing a nucleus to be able to house and organize your cellular DNA, which you all should remember that it does that. And what is causing the endoplasmic reticulum to be a perfect building site for proteins and lipids, which you all should remember is its functions. Why do they do what they do? Because these organelles have a specific structure. And structure dictates what? Function. And wait a minute, what makes up the structure of these organelles are what are called macromolecules, which are just big molecules, aren't they? Macromolecules, big molecules. This is y'all's review. I hope you're feeling like it was a review. Lie to me. How many of you are feeling like this is just a review? Okay, good, because it is. All right. So these macromolecules make them up. But what is a macromolecule? A big molecule? But my question would be, what is a molecule? A molecule is going to be made up of 2 or more atoms of elements. Is that right? Elements being, you could go to that periodic table and look at those different elements, right? Elements being the smallest thing that we know that have unique properties. Do you remember atoms of carbon we studied, and we studied atoms of sodium and chloride, and we studied quite a few atoms of these elements. Elements are the smallest thing that we know that have unique properties. And you know what gives them their unique properties? Their structure. Do you remember learning the structure of an atom? Do you remember the nucleus of an atom and the orbits or shells? And we said that some atoms love to play with each other and some don't and won't, right? And we saw how and why they play with each other or not. And what did we call that the study of? Chemistry. Is everybody awake now? We spent a lot of time on that. Why did I spend a lot of time on chemistry and molecular and cellular biology? Why did I do that last semester? Why did I do that? Can you understand human anatomy and physiology without understanding molecular and cellular biology? You absolutely cannot. Where is all disease? At what level? Molecular level. I mean, you could try to, but you would be incredibly, grossly uninformed. So you don't want to be, do you? You want to understand that this all health and state of not being in balance or disease is all at a molecular and cellular level. So where does treatment have to begin? At that level. At that level. Okay, that was a little bit of a review, wasn't it? I'm going to give you another little bit of a review, and you will have quiz questions on this Wednesday. How many tissue types were there? There were 4 tissue types. What were they again? Epithelial. What's a function? What are 2 functions of epithelial? Line and secrete. What was the connective? Give me some examples of connective tissues. Tendons, ligaments, right? Bone, blood, cartilage. That's connective tissues. Those are examples of connective tissue. What's the special function that nervous tissue does that the others don't do, really? Nervous tissue, that tissue detects environmental stimuli and detects changes and then responds by communicating with other cells. Does nerve tissue just communicate with other nerve tissues? Do neurons just communicate with other neurons? No. We saw motor neurons communicating with muscle, didn't we? Skeletal muscle. Do y'all remember that? Of course we did. And it also, the nervous system communicates with the endocrine glands. Endocrine glands. And then muscle was a category in its own because it can contract. So we had, how many types of muscle do we have? Let's remember, cardiac is one, skeletal is one, and smooth muscle. Cardiac is obviously your what? Heart. Skeletal muscle is for movement, right? And stability and posture. And then smooth muscle was what? Surrounding body organs and controls organ volume. Okay, we learned that muscle was all innervated. Those three different muscle types were innervated by different means. Skeletal muscle was voluntary. You're taking notes there. That's voluntary, what you're doing. Cardiac muscle was autorhythmic and it has a pacemaker. Remember? Anybody remember what that pacemaker is called? Very good. The SA node, the sinoatrial node, the cardiac muscle does. And smooth muscle is controlled by hormones. Okay, so neurotransmitters, they / hormones. So great. All right, now, let's go back a second. So we said there's 4 tissues, 2 or more tissue types make up organs. We're in organ system study now. But we said the cells make up tissues. Different types of cells make up tissues. And inside those cells are these macromolecules. What were the 4 macromolecule categories that we learned about? What were they? Proteins, carbs, lipids, and nucleic acids. Do you remember those? Are they alive? No. They are molecules. Molecules are not alive. That are made of elements. But when they come together in a very specific way and structure, will they have a function? They absolutely will have a function. What is that macromolecule that you all told me is the signature molecule of all life because it dictates the recipes of your proteins? It dictates the recipes of for your proteins. Would you say, Janet? It's DNA. And what does DNA stand for exactly? Like knowing how to spell it? Deoxyribonucleic acid is a macromolecule. It's not alive. But it dictates all the recipes. It holds all the recipes for all of your traits. We saw how that happened, didn't we? We worked through how that happened with the understanding that we weren't doing it just to be eggheads or nerds. We were doing it because we understood that if there was a problem in transcription or translation, that could equate to a devastating disease. Is that right? Right? Am I yelling? Casey's like, God, I'm sorry, I sat up here. So, absolutely. So that's why we really do. We don't want to forget any of that. You have to go through A&P, the entire book in an 8-credit course, right? In 2 semesters or 1 semester that's condensed, however many hours. So you have to have not the majority of it. You have to have 40+ hours of lecture for each one of them. But does that mean we can really learn it all in that time? Nobody's expecting that. Nobody expects that. But here's the thing. If you're going into a medical field, this is your foundation. This is the foundation of the information that you will use as the professional that you will become. And how you get evaluated on how much you know, I can promise you, you will be judged on that. And what you can do is you can think about it as not just yourself lying in that bed and somebody coming in that maybe doesn't know everything they need to know by the time that they have a license to do to you, something that maybe they shouldn't be doing. But how about your family members? So you really want to make sure you continue your study. You don't just end the semester and put your stuff away. You continue to explore about it, because by the time it's printed, I don't want to see anybody with books. Hold that book up. By the time it's printed, it's already old. How long did I tell? It's already old information and there's new stuff. You all have chosen fields, and I congratulate you on this. You have chosen fields that you will never get to know it all, and you will always have to be lifelong learners. And no one will expect you to ever know it all, but by God, they will expect you to try to stay as up to date as you possibly can. Right now, it's taking about 10 years to get from research to practitioners. That's too long, isn't it? One of the reasons that's too long, well, there's a lot of reasons that's too long. It's nobody's fault. But one of the reasons is that people get comfortable in their position. Because honestly, medicine's like a lot of things, and that in a lot of jobs, there's certain things that you do that you just do by rote. You know, you just do it because that's what's coming in, and you know, a strep throat's a strep throat. Hypertension's hypertension. You know, type 1 diabetes is type 1 diabetes. No, it's not. No, it isn't. Because here's what you need to understand. You can't get comfortable about that kind of thing, because not any two people that have the same disease are going to actually react the same to what you do to treat them. So congratulations, you've chosen an incredibly wonderful field, but also a field that you just are going to always have to be pushing to know what's the newest information that's out there, what are the best treatment choices, what are the best options, and then not just that, but understanding there are no two people that are exactly alike. No two. That's why thoracic surgeons are egomaniacs. And they need to be. Any surgeon needs to be. Because surgeons learn, you know, how to operate. They learn what anatomy is. They learn that. But they have a quick understanding. They learn it really, really quickly, that they don't know what they're going to see when they get in there. And it doesn't even matter how many scans were done, because no two people are exactly alike. So you know what? You want that cocky egomaniac to be your surgeon, because you want them to have some confidence. Anyway, okay, so that's my little, were we talking about the syllabus? Okay. All right, so we're talking about the syllabus, and the syllabus is our contract, and I don't need to read that to you, just like I don't read the PowerPoints. Wouldn't that be horrible if I read the PowerPoints to y'all? And I don't. But anyway, everything's on here. This is a tentative schedule of what we're going to try to do this semester. Those of you, my new people, if you took AMP1, did you both have AMP1? If you took AMP1, and I know Longwood does it different. Where are you from, Blair? Yeah, okay, then. It depends on, you know, who's teaching AMP1 and 2 and what textbooks they use. So we may have some repeat. You all, I think you already had the endocrine system at Longwood in your AMP1. Did you also? Okay. Okay. So, oh, I hope this won't be boring for either one of you. But then there will be, and I just have to tell you all, because you all are crossing T's and dotting I's and getting the full 8 credits. But I try to explain to those people who are doing that, it will be up to you to self-study the organ systems that were maybe missed. And I feel confident that, you know, anybody going into medicine would do that. They would make sure that they did their own self-study of those organ systems. Okay, so anyway, this is kind of our schedule. Let me tell you old folks that have been with me before. I'm the old folks. Okay, but anyway, let me tell you guys and everybody. Y'all know that we have a final exam in this class. A lot of classes don't have final exams, and y'all know that their final exam is cumulative, right? Our tests in this course are multiple choice questions, and our tests are usually going to be on what we, you know, the chapters we just studied, and they're going to be multiple choice questions based on our lectures. But also, there's 2 other things you have to study when a test is coming. What are those things? Deeper insights, which are in the textbook. Deeper insights, and the disorders tables at the end of the chapter. Y'all know that, and you know I usually talk about them, but there might be some I don't talk about. But that's okay. That's your reading assignments that you know for multiple choice tests. You've got to study those, right? Now, everybody that's been with me in the fall, listen up to this. This is different, this class. In this class, once I start introducing these hormones, any hormone, anything about a hormone, where it's from, what it targets, what its stimulus for the release is, any disorder about it is a fair game question on any lecture quiz and any test. And your final exam in this class will be those deeper insights and disorders and any question about any what? Hormone. Do you know what that should be telling you at this point? It means that you need to get them as we go. Because if you don't get them as we go, they're going to come back and bite you the rest of the semester. And I can tell you, and I think a lot of you all, I won't ask you, trust me, but I think a lot of you all trust me. The ones who don't get it as we go don't make it through this semester. So we're about to start our study of the endocrine system. Are y'all ready? Are you ready? Okay. We've had a little bit of a review, haven't we? And we are about to study this. Do I have any questions for me about this course before I start? We actually have already started a little bit, but do I have any questions? Yes, Terry. Okay, yeah, okay, I'll talk to you. I was going to do it at the beginning of lab, but I'll do it right now. Thank you. So, guys, thank you, Mother. Okay, because I did want to talk to you all about it, and I told you it was $66. Huh? Okay. Okay. Guys, I don't know if this will be on here because it might not show up yet, but let me see if I can show you something. I hope that didn't mess up something. Hey guys, when you go to, is everybody listening? And by the way, I love it when y'all have the floor, but make sure you have the floor if you're talking, okay? And everybody can hear, right? All right. So, you guys, do y'all see in module, the begin here, here's a syllabus that you all have available to you. I'm going to make this available. This is the Visible Body course code. So after you've purchased this, you'll go to this page and you'll see this long, whatever. This is our course. I will be giving, this is lab though. This is all lab. And there will be lab assignments for you guys. There will be one later today, but it won't be, you won't have to have that done until next Monday. And I will put that in there, okay? So the due dates for that. So once you get this, you do open this up. You go to the website, their website, their instructions are in here. You have to put in your code. Once you do this, I think you only have to register once. Like you create a thing, you register once. It's going to ask you for the class code, and that's the class code. Okay, so you'll find it under Canvas. Any questions about that? Thank you, Terry. That's actually good. You don't have to have it today, but there will be an assignment in there that would be, I would want you all to have done by next week.
We need this for lab?
Yeah, lab. You need it for lab for this course. So is everybody clear about that? I'm going to talk more about that first assignment. I haven't even posted the assignment yet. But I'm going to post the assignment again, hopefully by today. Post this first assignment. You will have, it's a lab assignment. You will have at least a week to get this done. Okay, and I'll talk more about that during lab time. And it is required. Here's the good news about this. Well, the good news is that we're just exploring this together, and it's going to be it is a cool product. And for this amount of money, you can actually download this and keep it forever. It's not one of those course codes that only lasts you for a semester. It is a code that once you've registered for 2 years, any class that used it, you wouldn't have to pay for it again. Because for 2 years, you have access to them. But you can also download it and have it forever. Just like a textbook, if you will. It has 4 different components. One of the components, you can do one mobile app download, so you can either do it with an iPad or your phone. I think most young people do it with their phones, but anyway. And it has something called augmented reality. So what happens is with this visible body is you can scroll with your phone, you can scroll over whatever image you're wanting to see, whether it's the brain or whether it's one of these endocrine organs, and that organ will appear in the room with you. It'll look like from your phone that it's in the room with you, and you can turn, using your finger, you can turn it upside down, sideways, all which way. You can click on different parts, structures of the organ, pronounce those structures. So it's got a lot of functionality within that app. So anyway, I will get you guys, I will get your first assignment posted in the modules by later today, but it won't be due until next week. Your first assignment, since you brought it up, Charity, aren't you said you did? Your first assignment, though, will be a review. And the reason, everybody good in the background? So your first assignment will be on, if y'all remember the lab 2 and AMP 1 was regions and directional terms of the body, regions of the body, directional terms, that type of thing. You're going to have that again. And it's because, you know, we discussed it last semester. It's not just you guys, it's always the lowest class average. And I just don't know why, but anyway, you'll have another chance at that. Okay, so that will be your first assignment under visible body, is an assignment that's related to regions of the body, some medical terminology, and just directional terms. All right, it's pretty straightforward, I think. You'll think. Okay, so here we go. The endocrine system. Do y'all remember me telling you that the endocrine hormones rule and rock your world? Well, you know, I think I said it a few times. Hormones do rule and rock your world. And most of the time when people think about hormones ruling and rocking their world, they think about sex. And that's not a bad thing, because we do need to be thinking about sex just for keeping the species going, right? So that's very, very natural that that's the case. But what most people don't understand, because that's the only thing they think about when they think about hormones, is that. But what most people don't realize is that it's keeping everything in homeostasis, from blood glucose levels to blood calcium levels, anything that you can think of. It is keeping you in a state of health and balance. And we remember, if we don't remember, let's try to go back and think about this. I had given you guys an example of homeostasis, and it's worth repeating, I think, where we said that you have you have a normal high level of things, and you have a normal low level, but you have these set points for everything, right? Whether it's temperature, whether it is, like I said, blood glucose. We'll just do blood glucose just as an example right now. That you have these set points. What sets the set point of all of these different parameters? What sets it is the nervous system, right? And what detects it are very specialized cells within the nervous system, tissues of the nervous system, that detect when blood glucose levels start to get what? High. And also detect when they start to get low. And you all told me that since the nervous system is doing this, it's going to send a signal, a chemical molecule signal. It's going to send a signal. So if it detects that it's high, that is going to be reversed or negated. Did you say? When it detects that it's low, that is going to be detected, and it's going to be reversed or negated. And we call that negative feedback. But we said the nervous system does all of this, which is amazing, but it does it by, and the only reason it's able to do it, well, it's because the different colors don't really work. The only reason it's able to do it is that it sends signals to the endocrine system. And when I say the endocrine system, I'm talking usually about particular glands of the endocrine system. And these glands are going to secrete molecules that we think of as hormones. Is that right? Hormones. So these molecules, these glands that are secreting, and if they're secreting, we know they probably are what tissue type? Endocrine glands are what tissue type if they're secreting? They really are epithelial. So they're secreting these hormones that are going to cause a reaction. And that reaction is typically going to be reversing the initial stimulus. That's called negative feedback, and that's mainly how the body maintains homeostasis, meaning staying in the set point ranges. So let's look at just blood glucose, and depending on since none of these are really colored the way they're supposed to, depending on what hospital you're at, you usually go from about 70 milligrams per deciliter to about 110. You know, sometimes you'll see 75 to 100. But anyway, so this is blood glucose. And if you're within those normal parameters, then great. Then great. Glucose, why do we need glucose, by the way? Why do we need our blood system transporting glucose to our stationary tissues, our cells that are in our tissues that are stationary? Why do we need glucose? Glucose plus what gives you energy? A ton of energy. Glucose plus what inside of our cells? Oxygen. And what did we call that when we said that we had C6H12? And yeah, if I'm writing it, do you need to know it? Plus 6O2 oxygen. What did we say when we know that if this inside of our cells gives us energy, it's going to give off 6 CO2, carbon dioxide, plus 6 water. What did we say that equation's called? What was that? What'd you say? Aerobic respiration. This is aerobic respiration. And this is the major way our cells get the most energy from the environment, right? As long as there's a glucose molecule and some oxygen present, then our cells can get a ton of energy. If you don't think it's important, close your mouth and nose at the same time. How much time do you get? Not long. Without the oxygen, within 4 to 6 minutes, your cells are dying, right? But let's say no food's coming in. It's going to take longer because we have storage. Some of us may be more storage than me. I'm not talking about myself here. But anyway, but we need glucose too. It might take longer, but would you eventually die without it? Why? Because aerobic respiration is the cleanest, quickest source of fuel for our cells. Y'all remember that? Tell me you do. Yes? And you remember the equation, and you're going to remember that equation. Yep. You're going to know how to write it, aren't you? Anybody have any questions about it? Great. So aerobic respiration. Now, so blood glucose levels, now I think they might be important. I think that might be pretty important, keeping them in homeostasis. Because if we don't have enough glucose, you just told me we die, right? But what would be the problem with having too much? What did you say, Dakota? It's neurotoxic. Look, guys, this is what I think that we might have a problem with. A lot of people have a problem with. They're like, okay, well, that's a really good thing, so I'll get more of it. You know, I'll get more. But actually, no. We're in this like Goldilocks little thing here where even if you think it's a good thing, having too much of it is bad. There's an article in the Richmond Times today in the health section talking about HDL, which I whatever, but it's a type of cholesterol that we consider the good cholesterol. But it's an entire research article based on having too much. And you can actually have too much. So you can have too much of a good thing. And the reason you don't want glucose levels getting too high or stay too high for too long is because it's neurotoxic. Which if we broke that down, what would that mean? Poison to what tissue? The nerve tissue. Poison to the nerve tissue. Wait a minute. What system keeps us in all homeostasis? And it does it predominantly by signaling and communicating with what other system? The endocrine. And the endocrine glands are going to release their what? Hormones. And it's going to keep you in balance. Is that right? Right? Through negative feedback. So we said if glucose levels start to, if this is glucose, if glucose levels start to get too high, then an endocrine gland called the pancreas is going to release a hormone. Anybody know what it's called? Insulin. And insulin is going to do what to your blood glucose levels? Bring them back in homeostasis. And then if blood glucose levels start to get too low, it's the pancreas again that gets targeted. But this time the pancreas releases what? Would you all remember as an example? I gave you this. It releases a hormone called glucagon. And glucagon is going to do what to your blood glucose levels? Bring them back up, right? So, look, if y'all decide to do this by the seat of your pants, that's up to you. But there are two things that I should make this a requirement in the syllabus, but I haven't yet. There are a couple of things I need to tell you I should make a requirement that you can't pass the class unless you know this, unless this is just burned into your psyche. Insulin levels drop. Insulin drops blood glucose levels. Drops them. What do you all know is a major drug that's used in healthcare facilities? Insulin. And what's it going to do to that patient's blood glucose levels? And if they get down much below 70, 40, 20, what is that patient going to look like they're doing? Sleeping. But guess what they're really in? A coma. And guess what can happen after the coma? Death. And they look like they were asleep. I've had so many, but nurses say, oh, well, I just didn't get that level because they were resting so comfortably. I said, how do you know they weren't in a coma? Go get the level. Go get the blood glucose level, right? You don't skip those levels because if they get too low, they die. More patients that are diabetic die from low blood glucose levels than they do from high. And who gave them the drug that made them go low? The healthcare professionals did. What does insulin do to patients' blood glucose levels? Is it a serious medication? Insulin shock is no joke. And I'm saying that to y'all because I have seen it happen. And here's the thing. Wednesday, I'm going to have some of you get that wrong. I don't feel like coming and talking to you at your houses, but I won't. But I'm just telling you, please understand that, okay? What does glucagon do? Because you've got that patient. You just tested Taylor. She's in the skilled care facility. You just went and did that 4 a.m. You didn't even wake her up. But she's got a 40 milligram per deciliter, and she looks like she's resting carefully. She didn't even wake up for you to stick her finger. But what are you going to give her? Glucagon. And as soon as you don't think she'll choke to death, you're going to give her some orange juice with sugar in it. Add it, right? Because what if you got to get that sugar level back too? You got to get it back up in homeostasis, don't you? Because what is not working? If their nervous system is not working. The nervous system is amazing, but it is the most needy. It is the most needy for glucose, and getting enough energy. When anything starts to get off, it's your nervous system that's going to be affected by it most. This is why when people are on medications, whether they're over the counter, whether they're legal, or whether they're illicit, that depress the nervous system or stimulate the nervous system, is this something of concern? Yes. Because it is the system that keeps everything else in homeostasis. So are we good for now? All right, look, guys. 10 major endocrine organs. 10 major endocrine organs. This seems a little easy after those muscles and bones, right? So, but these are the organs that you will need to know where they are. Do you think I'm giving you this picture for your first lab? Well, actually, your first lab is going to be regions of the body and directional terms. I know y'all, who's excited about doing that again? Okay. Sorry, but that just means we need some reinforcement. All right, but this will be the second lab, which is going to be just labeling these 10 major. I'm telling you right now, it's these 10. So here's what you want to do. You want to look at a ton of pictures. And I'm going to have on the visible body, I'm going to have an assignment for this too, so that you guys get to play with each of these. You make sure you know where they are before the actual lab quiz on this. Is that fair? You're not going to just look at this picture, are you? And so anyway, but these are the organs you're going to need to know. Now these are going to be the major endocrine glands that we are going to look at in this chapter. But let me say this and listen to what I'm saying. How many cells did I tell you have as a human being? How many cells do you have? Trillions. Cells that are working together to form tissues making up your organ. Every cell in your body, except for red blood cells, every cell in your body is an endocrine producer. We need to be in awe of the endocrine system. So I'm telling you, every cell that makes up all the other organs that aren't listed here, except for red blood cells, every cell produces hormones. A hormone is a molecule, and if y'all had to define it for me, you're not going to memorize definitions, are you? You're going to put things in your own words, because if you put things in your own words, what does it help you to do? Own it. If you memorize texts and give them back to me, I think, bless their heart, they don't know what they're talking about. You paraphrase things, you try to put them in your own words. A hormone is a molecule. It's going to act like a messenger. It's going to turn something on or off in another cell. Sometimes the cell's right beside it, but sometimes the cell is far-reaching. But that's what a hormone is. It's going to do that, and there's going to be a change. There's going to be a response. Because we said we're never in a state of just staying the same, are we? We're always in a state of change, aren't we? We better be able to do that. Our cells had better be able to communicate with each other. So when we talk about the target cell, that means, what is that hormone going to go target? What is that hormone? Is it going to target the cell right next to it? Or is that hormone going to be sent into the bloodstream and have very far-reaching effects? And we're going to see some hormones that do that. They have very far-reaching effects and widespread effects, where we have other hormones that are going to have very specific target cells. Let me tell you these little definitions for you. Let me tell you what you're going to want to know, and this is going to be the basics of what you need to know. And we're going to start with each of those, those 10 organs. I can't talk about them all at the same time, so I'm going to talk about them one at a time and tell you the hormones that are released from that organ. I'm going to tell you what those hormones target, and I'm going to tell you what their function is once they get to that target. Fair enough? So let me say this to you for this class, for this chapter. You need to, anytime I mention a hormone, you need to, in your head, be thinking, where is it released from? Where is it going? And what is it going to do when it gets there? For every hormone that we talk about. All right? Fair enough? I am going to give you some little exercises that will potentially help you with that. But that's what you're going to be thinking about. So like when I mentioned insulin, y'all would know where it's from. Where is it from? It's from the pancreas. It's going to target blood glucose, right? Widespread blood glucose. It's going to be in the bloodstream, widespread. And what's it going to do to blood glucose levels? Decrease them. So that's its function, right? All right, so you guys are going to know that you're going to be doing that for every single hormone we talk about. Okay, great. Now, look, guys, these next few slides are FYI, which means I won't be asking you questions per se, but that doesn't mean just skip them. You should read them because it can help you to just be more fluent about this. But when well, I do need you to know this part. Endocrine versus exocrine. Endo means that these hormones are going to stay within. They're going to stay within the system. There's no ducts. They're not going to be, leaving the body because there was no ducts. They're going to stay in the system. Where exocrine glands are going to be secreted into ducts that end up eventually exiting the body. So, for example, some of our glands we talk about, and this is a great example as a basic example to give you. Some of these glands are actually both endocrine and exocrine in their function. The pancreas is one of those. The pancreas is an endocrine gland because it releases insulin and glucagon that stay within the body and have very specific functions. But the pancreas, if you've ever looked at the picture of a pancreas, and I know this is tiny, you can't see it from here, but whatever, if you had it closer in your book, the pancreas has a duct port system that runs all the way through it. And what is also being released by the pancreas are going to be exocrine hormones that are going to help with digestion. And so for them to help with digestion, they need to go through a duct system that takes them to the small intestine. And once those hormones get in the small intestines, they're going to have specific actions. Do you think we're going to need to learn them when we get there? After this chapter, you're going to maybe be thinking that there couldn't possibly be another hormone that you have to learn. But with every organ system we talk about after this chapter, we'll be adding to our hormone list. These are just the 10 major ones, right? Okay, so nobody's sighing deeply. Okay, hopefully not. All right, so as far as similarities and differences between the endocrine and the nervous system, you guys can look at that as I won't be asking you about it, but you can look at I want you to remember, and y'all had to label this for me on the brain, if you remember, if you had a mid-sagittal section of the brain and you were looking at this brain, this was the pons and the medulla. Everybody with me on this? The brain stem. And then you had the midbrain and the thalamus. Everybody remembers, you labeled them for me. If you didn't, keep studying it. Go back. Make sure you know. Beneath the thalamus is this area called the hypo, because hypo means what? I don't care where you see it. What does hypo mean? Low, doesn't it? So beneath the thalamus is this area called the hypothalamus. And then attached to the hypothalamus by a little stalk, the little stalk of tissue, here's the hypothalamus, there's this little tiny stalk of tissue. There is this pea-shaped, green pea, like a little green pea-shaped organ called the pituitary. But here's what I want you to know first, and that's the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, you could call this the seat of your universe. You really could. We used to think it was the pituitary gland, but it's not. It's the hypothalamus. If you've ever felt like you were thirsty, how many of you felt thirsty? I'm so thirsty just talking about it. Hungry. If you've ever felt full, if you've ever felt like you wanted to have sex, if you've ever felt whatever, guess where that came from, those feelings? The hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is controlling most of that, your thermoregulation, all of that, through functions that are carried out by the pituitary gland. Now, how do you think the hypothalamus does that? Tell me how you think the hypothalamus is controlling this little gland. And this little gland, see, this is very recently that we understood the hypothalamus is doing this. It's not that long ago that that was discovered. It was thought that the pituitary gland was sensing everything that was needed going on in very far-reaching areas of the body, and the pituitary gland was controlling it. But what we found out is nope. It's the hypothalamus that's doing it, turning on and turning off the pituitary gland. We thought it was the pituitary because the anatomy suggested that the pituitary was really important, and just like anything obviously in our brain is. But that pituitary gland is encased like a little pearl in the sphenoid bone. It is sitting in that sphenoid bone totally, except for this little stalk of tissue, the infundibulum. It is totally encased in that sphenoid bone. Do y'all remember the sphenoid, don't you? That butterfly-shaped bone that is, well, whatever. Go back and look at it. It obviously is an important gland, this pituitary, and it certainly is. And there are going to be 8 hormones that you need to know from the that are released from the pituitary gland. You're going to need to know them. But what did I just say to you? I just said, Rebecca, right? I said that the pituitary is not doing anything until it got a signal from where? What do you think that signal's coming in the form of? A hormone. Would y'all all agree? Now, do you think it would be if I told you that the pituitary gland is responsible for releasing 8 hormones, do you think the same hormone from the hypothalamus can cause all 8 of them to be released? No, it's very specific. And I am giving you all, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm kind of giving you all a break a little bit. No, y'all won't think I mean, but this is a break. This hypothalamus is releasing molecules that are going to turn off or on the pituitary gland, and I'm not going to have you know those. But I will ask you questions about how the pituitary is functioning, and how is it functioning because of hormones from where? That are turning it off and on. And they're different hormones that turn it off and on, right? But I won't give these. These are not going to be part of your list. You will just need to know that. Now, what I will do is we're going to start with the pituitary gland. Here's this little pituitary gland. We're going to start with the pituitary gland. And you're going to know for each of the hormones that I talk about from the pituitary gland, there was a specific hormone from the hypothalamus that made it release that hormone. A specific one that made it release this one. A specific one that made it release this one. And then there's specific ones that make it stop. Because it's stopping, it's just as important as the releasing, right? You can't just have too much of it, right? Because we said that wouldn't be a good thing. So the hypothalamus, really the seat of your universe. No kidding. And even and honestly, I'll tell you, the study of endocrine systems, endocrinology, obviously. But endocrinology, we are like cave people in what we understand about endocrinology right now. Yes, we know a lot, but every single day, there are researchers that are finding out about new hormones we didn't know about, and or hormones that we've known about for decades that we didn't know that they had a function that they had. Do you hear what I'm saying? So every single, this is a new science. It's like a little baby science, endocrinology. And it is, I would have to say, complex. It's complex in the sense that there's so many things that can influence so many other things that are happening with the endocrine system. And so this is probably why if somebody has an endocrine disorder, and maybe it's just one endocrine disorder, maybe it's diabetes mellitus or diabetes insipidus or Hashimoto's or whatever, maybe it's just one thing. But if they get diagnosed with another endocrine disorder, they need to leave that primary care provider and go to a what? A specialist. They do. The best primary care provider you'll ever have is the one who says, you know what, this isn't happening just like it should be, and I need to send you on to somebody who's a specialist. That's the best primary care provider you'll ever have, is that one that knows the limitations. Because the specialists are getting the newest information quicker, right, about their particular fields. There's a catch-22, though. Specialists are typically really kind of, they have blinders on and they're just looking at their specialty. So that can be definitely a catch-22 with that. Primary care providers are really worth their weight in gold, but the ones that understand their limitations are definitely worth their weight in gold, right? All right, so let's get started. Are y'all having fun yet? Okay, then. I am going to give you a break between this and that. Now, let's get started, though. The pituitary gland, the 8, well, there's only 6 up here because this is the front part of the pituitary that we're going to be looking at, but I'm going to give you 2 extra ones, 2 other ones that are being released from the back part that are actually made in the hypothalamus and stored here and then released. And if you tell me that these 8 are from the pituitary, then that's fine. That's what I'm going to know. But let's go ahead and start. I like this visual because I'm a visual learner. How many of y'all like visuals for learning, right? Some of you are audio learners, so if you ever hear it, you kind of will remember it. But this to me is something that just is helpful. So the first one is prolactin. And yeah, you would need to know how to spell these hormones and not just abbreviations. Prolactin. Prolactin in women will target mammary glands, and what do you think will be made? Milk. So if I were to ask you where is prolactin from, you say the pituitary. Where does it target? Is it specific or is it widespread? It's specific to the what? Mammary glands in women, and what does it make? Milk. That's its function. So what would be the stimulus for the release of it? What'd you say? A baby's needing some milk, so they're suckling, right? So this is when this is in a normal situation. This is what should be happening. So later in that 3rd trimester, prolactin levels will start to go up, and as those prolactin levels are starting to become cyclic in their release, then what will come in? They call it the milk will come in, right? And the stimulus for the release on it at that point is going to be sometimes just hearing a baby cry. How many of you had a letdown response just hearing a baby cry? Exactly. You don't have to have them sucking to have that letdown response. Right. All right, so prolactin. So does that mean men don't have prolactin? Men do have prolactin. And remember, if I'm telling you this, I'm not doing it for my health. I need you to know. Anything I say, or y'all need to know. Yep. So prolactin in men are actually going to stimulate LH, the men's LH. Now, I haven't talked about luteinizing hormone yet, but hold on, because I will in a minute. Right now, though, y'all are just got your little prolactin note, and you say in women, making milk, and men stimulating LH. And I'll tell you what LH is in a second. Ready? Keep going. From the pituitary, deep in the brain, right, this little pea-sized gland in shape. Here's the second one. It's called thyroid stimulating hormone. It's nice when a hormone's name sort of tells you something about it. Thyroid stimulating hormone tells you it's going to target where? The thyroid, which is a butterfly-shaped gland in your throat here. So it's going to target the thyroid, and it's going to stimulate the thyroid to produce its hormones. And for right now, what I want you to put by this is, in a normal situation, this should raise metabolism. So TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, targets the thyroid, so the thyroid will release its hormones, and that's going to hopefully raise metabolism. What is metabolism? If I ever say something that you're thinking to yourself, okay, what exactly is that? So here's a working definition for metabolism: is all of the work that's happening in your cells at any given time can be measured, and that's called your metabolism. That means all of the chemistry, all the sum of all the chemical reactions, the decomposition, the synthesis, the exchange reactions, all of that work that your cells are doing, your manufacturing speed is your metabolism. Do you have to always be at the maximum? Would that be so inefficient if your metabolism was always like peaked out? No, that would actually be incredibly unhealthy, wouldn't it? So what is metabolism doing? Tell me what metabolism is doing. It's fluctuating, going up and down, and it should remain in what? And sometimes it needs to be, sometimes it's needing to go up, but sometimes it's needing to come down, isn't it? And so it is needing to do that. But metabolism is the sum or the total of all the chemical reactions that are happening in your cells at any given time, and its rate is going to be regulated, one of the things, through TSH, targeting the thyroid to produce its hormones that will cause it to hopefully go up. So a stimulus for the release of it is that your metabolism has gotten low. Your nervous system detected it. No big deal. That's what your nervous system is for. Your nervous system detects that your metabolism's a little low, needs to come back up. Sends the hypothalamus sends a signal to the pituitary sends a signal to the thyroid. The thyroid releases its hormones, and what does your metabolism start to do? Come back up. Guys, why is it important to know every step along the way? Suppose that my metabolism sucks. Janet, by the way, it does. So anyway, but no, not always. But suppose my metabolism is low. That means my cells aren't working at what they need to. My cells aren't working with how they need to work. That's going to affect my skin, my hair, my digestive system. That's going to affect cognition and how I think, because I just am not producing enough. My cells are not working enough. It's going to end up having a lot of effects if my metabolism is too low. Probably going to start seeing weight gains because my cells aren't using the calories. That I didn't even change my calorie intake, but my cells aren't using them the way they should. So it's going to maybe look like my weight is going, it just doesn't sound like a good thing, does it? Maybe metabolism is working. I forgot what I was going to say. What was I talking about? Metabolism. Okay. Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, so why would I care about each of those levels? I know I have a low metabolism. So is it necessarily my thyroid? No. Blair says no. Because Blair, we know it's not just the thyroid that was involved. What might it be? It might be the pituitary. But hey, wait. Exactly. So understanding that hypothalamus, and again, that's a fairly recent understanding, all those hormones from hypothalamus. That added another entire level of understanding to the endocrine system for us and for diagnosis, because we do understand that complexity. You get it? Okay, good. That is what I was thinking. All right, so great. Now, LH and FSH. LH and FSH. LH stands for luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone, and I know y'all are going to look these up, how to spell them and whatnot. And FSH stands for follicle stimulating hormone.
These are two separate hormones.
Two separate hormones. They're referred to as gonadotropins because they travel to the gonads. And what are the gonads? What are the gonads? Testes and ovaries, right? Gonads are testes and ovaries. So the testes and ovaries are related to, they're only functioning because they get a signal from where? From the pituitary, which sent that signal because of a signal from the, exactly. So let's look at this. Let's look at FSH first. And what I want you to know about FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Now look, y'all can look at your textbooks and you'll see all kinds of chemical types of things and whatever. I'm going to ask you functions. I'm giving them to you. Know what I said, okay? FSH in females is going to cause the production of an egg. It's going to allow for the production of an egg. FSH in males is going to allow for the production of, guess what? Sperm. Fair enough. Is that fair enough? Good. Luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone in women. Guys, our egg, this egg that's being targeted by the FSH, that egg is maturing inside of a follicle, maturing. But it's inside of an encased follicle. And that follicle is going to have to rupture. We call that ovulation. When this follicle ruptures, some women feel it. I had my best friend Donna in college. She's like, oh, I ovulated. She did. That's true. So anyway, did any of y'all? I shouldn't have laughed about that because some women are really sensitive to that. They feel it. How many of you feel ovulation? Do you feel it? Okay, you wouldn't probably say now because I was laughing at Donna, but it was just because of how she said it. She was like, oh. Anyway. The follicle ruptures, and it ruptures because of luteinizing hormone spiking. So luteinizing hormone causes ovulation, doesn't it? It targets the follicle, and the function of it is ovulation. Ovulation is the event where the follicle ruptures and releases the egg. That's what ovulation is. Okay. All right, now, what does it do in men? What it does in men, because we already know that it's also going to be enhanced in men because of prolactin that men have. So what it's going to do in men is it's going to target the cells of the testes to release testosterone. Testosterone will walk hand in hand and help with sperm production. But what do men have to have for sperm production? What's the best answer? FSH, don't they? Testosterone too, but anyway, testosterone is being produced because of the luteinizing hormone, and it's going to cause. Testosterone has, and we're going to find out when we get to the gonads. Testosterone has widespread effects in men, not just sperm production, muscle mass, the deepening of the voice, which actually can. Never mind. We'll talk about all that later. But are you good with those two? They're called gonadotropins because they target the what? Tropin or tropic hormones or traveling hormones, so they target that. Right. So if a man has testosterone issues, is it always the testes that are the issue? No, it might not be. It might be the what? Luteinizing hormone, right? Or it might be the hypothalamus. That was from the pituitary. It might be the hypothalamus. ACTH. ACTH stands for adrenocorticotropic hormone. Adrenocorticotropic hormone. That's why we call it ACTH. Okay? ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. Y'all can look that up in the notes later. But it's called that because it targets the adrenal glands. And if I look at this word, what do I know renal means? I know renal means what? Did you say? Kidneys. That's a kidney. Doesn't that look like a kidney to you? Okay, whatever. And it's ad because it's sitting on top of the kidneys like a little hat, like a little hat. This adrenal gland. These adrenal glands are sitting like little cats on top of the kidneys. These adrenal glands are major contributors to our endocrine system. And maybe you'll take my word for it because we're going to get to the adrenal glands and talk about what hormones they release. But maybe you will take my word for it right now that ACTH targeting the adrenals are going to have an effect on fluid balance, tissue repair, and even glucose homeostasis, and sex hormones. So you're jotting that down right now. They're going to have an influence. So we need that ACTH. Are all those things sounding like they be things you would like to have in balance? What did I tell you they were? Fluid balance, tissue repair, glucose homeostasis, and what else did I say? Even sex hormones. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We get from our adrenal glands, we get sex hormones? Yes, we do. Ladies, we get estrogen from our adrenal glands. Ladies, we also get testosterone from our adrenal glands. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Men, you get estrogen from your adrenal glands. And you get even more testosterone like you needed it. No. Okay, listen, I didn't say that. That was a joke. Y'all were supposed to learn. But men have plenty of testosterone, right? But they're getting it also from their adrenal glands. Men get estrogen from their adrenal glands. Women get estrogen and testosterone from their adrenal glands. Testosterone, ladies, is what gives us the need, the drive to have sex. Testosterone is our libido hormone. The reason women don't have nearly the libido that men do is we get it only from where? Usually, if everything's normal. We get it from where? We get a little bit from our adrenal glands, but men are getting it from testes, from the adrenals. You know, they have a much higher. Men have to be ready 24/7. Women, how many times of a month can we really procreate? One time, a narrow little window, a few hours a month. That's the one time that we can procreate. Men can procreate 24/7. So this is natural. This is a natural thing, right? Growth hormone. Growth hormone. Growth hormone. And by the way, it's not abbreviated GH. It's usually HGH for human growth hormone. HGH, human growth hormone. Growth hormone targets from the pituitary, targets the liver, and the liver is going to release a chemical called somatotidins. Now, I don't ask you about somatotidins, but you can write that down if you want to. But I would want you to know that once the growth hormone gets to the liver plays a huge role in disseminating it throughout the body. And this is going to help with guess what? Growth. Once we reach full growth potential, do we not need growth hormone anymore? No, we need growth hormone throughout our life. But does it greatly decline levels of it after we reach? Yes, it does, but we need it. Growth hormone is absolutely necessary for regeneration, repair, protein synthesis, mitosis. You know, mitosis is cell division. And we have those things happening throughout our life, even if we live to be over 100. We need growth hormone. We don't need it at the levels, and it does decline, you know, at a certain part of our development. But we need growth hormone forever, and that is going to first target the liver, and then it's going to have widespread effects with growth. Now, so far, how many hormones do you have on your list? You have 6? You have 6? Is that right? You have 6. You should have 6. And I'm going to give you 2 more, and I know I'm going just a couple of minutes over, but I will tell you, because today it's you know, kind of our first day of lab. It's not going to be long. So I'm just going to do this, and then I am going to just give an announcement for the labs, and then I'm going to let you go, okay, for today. You're going to be ready for Wednesday? Anything I said, right? 9 o'clock, ready for a quiz, right? Okay. Anything I talked about, even review. Okay. 2 more hormones. These are actually released from the posterior pituitary. They're made in the hypothalamus, but it's okay with me if you just say they come from the pituitary. That's fine, because they are released from there. All right, so the first one I'm going to talk about is ADH, anti-diuretic hormone. ADH, anti-diuretic hormone. You guys, what do you know a diuretic will do to you? If you take in a diuretic, what will it do to you? It will make you do what, Janet? It will make you pee, right? Come on, get my caffeine. You know, people think caffeine does that. It only does that to you when you first initiate caffeine into your regimen. After you've had it for a little bit, it doesn't do that. But I probably need a break too. But anyway, so too much information. Here we go. So a diuretic makes you make a lot of urine, is what Janet said. Makes you make a lot of urine. What is urine? And you would want to know what urine is. What is urine? What is urine? What? What is it though? What is urine? What is urine? Waste. Filtered blood plasma. The next time you urinate, I want you to be thinking about that's your blood plasma that's been filtered. That's what it is. That's what urine is. Now, blood plasma is the liquid extracellular component of blood, right? Blood. So that's what blood plasma. If we took your whole blood, if you were dripping, and we got it in a tube, we could spin it down. Could we spin down your whole blood? And more than 50% of it is extracellular fluid, right? So that extracellular fluid is called plasma. And urine is filtered blood plasma. That's what it is. Most of blood plasma is water. So guess what urine is mostly? Water. Are you kidding? So your kidneys are controlling how much water is in your blood plasma? Is that right, Dakota? Because if your kidneys are letting a lot of the water leave your blood plasma, what's happening to your whole blood volume? It's going down. And if your blood volume's going down, what's happening to the pressure inside your vessels? If the volume went down, what happened to the pressure inside the vessels? It's decreasing. So if you're making a lot of urine, if you get a diuretic, so that and we give diuretics as drugs. If you get a diuretic, it means that you're going to be making a lot of urine. Your blood volume should be going down. So what should be happening to your blood pressure? It's going down. So what's the first drug of choice for hypertension? By the way, hypertension means high blood pressure. And you would want to know. So what's the first drug of choice for hypertension? A diuretic. You got too much blood volume, go try to get rid of some of that blood volume. The blood pressure should go down a little bit, and you're going to give a diuretic. But wait a minute. We produce a hormone that is actually called anti-diuretic hormone. So what do you think its function is? Its function is to lower urine output, which means that more water stays in our blood plasma and it raises blood pressure. So let me tell you about ADH, anti-diuretic hormone. It is released from the pituitary. It will target the kidneys. It will target the kidneys, and your urine output will decrease. Now you can say that's the function, but what should you really say is the function of it? Raise blood pressure. Exactly. Raise blood pressure. That's its function, is to raise blood pressure. Why do you want something to raise blood pressure? Raising blood pressure is such a bad thing. No, it's not such a bad thing, because what does blood pressure do throughout the day? Just like everything else, it fluctuates. And if blood pressure gets too low, it gets way too low, can you die? What do we call dangerously low blood pressure? Well, no, hypotension just means low blood pressure, but what do we call dangerously low blood pressure? Shock. Medical shock. Who said that? Thank you. Medical shock. And can you die from medical shock? But guess what keeps you on a daily basis from going into medical shock? Guess what is a major thing that keeps you from it? ADH. Because through the day, when your blood pressure starts to get a little bit low, and doesn't it change all throughout the day? When you woke up this morning, opened your eyes, it could have taken your vital signs and measured your blood pressure. As soon as you stood up, did it stay the same? It changed, didn't it? And it changes throughout the day. When it gets a little low, ADH is our major thing. How much urine do you produce about a day? As a normal adult, it would depend. Let's say you're a normal adult. You're not living someplace that's crazy hot or crazy cold. You're living whatever. I don't know. You're an average adult. You produce about 1.5 to 2 liters of urine a day. If you're drinking normal, if you whatever, that's how much you produce a day. If all of a sudden, and by the way, this happens all of a sudden. If all of a sudden you stop producing ADH, you'll start producing about 10 liters of urine a day. Are you kidding me? Can you survive losing that much fluid? You cannot. The disease that's known as is diabetes insipidus. And y'all want to write that down. Diabetes insipidus. You want to write that down. You guys, what does the word diabetes mean? What does the word diabetes mean? Does anybody know? When y'all have used that somebody has diabetes, which is really kind of, we probably as health professionals shouldn't say that, because when somebody says you have diabetes, almost all the time you're thinking about blood glucose levels being off, right? And you're really talking about diabetes mellitus. But I'm not talking about diabetes mellitus now. I'm talking about diabetes insipidus, which means that you're not making ADH. And when people start with this, it's usually an acute illness that starts suddenly and drastically, comes on quickly, and symptoms are severe. That's what acute means. Chronic illnesses come on kind of slowly, and the symptoms you almost can kind of get, whatever. But this is an acute illness, diabetes insipidus. Diabetes simply means you're making a lot of urine. That's what that means. You're producing a ton of urine. Diabetes insipidus, you're producing a ton of urine because you're not making enough of what? ADH. Make sure you know that. Okay. So we're happy that we make ADH, because if we weren't, we'd be eating about 10 liters a day. And by the way, people who have diabetes insipidus, the good news is that they can every day, they do a nasal spray to replace their ADH. It's just a nasal spray, and it's enough that it replaces it. And they aren't too much at risk for dehydration or osmolarity issues that we'll talk about later. But okay. Now the other one, and then I'm going to let you guys go. The other one is called oxytocin. 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 I want you to know that oxytocin in women targets more than 2 areas, but in women, when we think about oxytocin, it's targeting the uterus for contractions. So what is going to be the outcome of the uterus contracting? Childbirth, right? Okay, so the stimulus for the release of it is going to be that the child needs to be born, right? So the uterus is going to contract. In women, make sure you also know it provides the letdown response for milk. Milk is, this means that it's going to allow for the milk to be ejected. It has nothing to do with milk production. What is the hormone for milk production? Prolactin. Y'all know what lactose is, don't you? Lactose is milk sugar. Prolactin makes milk. But what causes the milk ejection is oxytocin. Oxytocin. Y'all know that for that letdown response, if babies truly had to suck milk out of the breast, they would starve to death. They don't. As soon as the letdown response happens, the milk is just spraying out. They just have to swallow. That's where it starts, right? So that's necessary. It has to be there. So it's in women, that's what it does. In women and men, it also causes emotional bonding. Emotional bonding. Oxytocin leads to emotional bonding. Now you all obviously see that late in the 3rd trimester why oxytocin would start to be being produced, so that the baby can be expelled, the fetus can be expelled. You know, if you think a woman can really push that big old fetus out by herself, you're crazy. That uterus has to contract, and it's contracting because of the oxytocin. So that childbirth, that's why oxytocin is so high. This is why women have, typically, if everything's good, have such a fierce response to that fetus, you know. It's because of oxytocin, that emotional bonding. But men have oxytocin too. Skin-to-skin contact causes oxytocin release even when you're not pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant. This is why sex, skin-to-skin sex, feels good, guys. It's more than just the sensory organs, the penis and the clitoris. It's skin-to-skin. That oxytocin feels good. Rocking causes oxytocin release. You ever wonder why if somebody hands somebody a baby, why they almost instinctively start to rock? It's oxytocin, so it's really important. Skin to skin. I'm really glad that in the neonatal units now and all of the OB units, they're doing that. Don't get on your friggin' phones. Put everything down, and if the father's there, sometimes even if siblings are there, they just take as much clothes off as they can, and with that newborn, do a skin-to-skin hour, at least an hour. It should be a lot longer than that, but it's that amount of time, and that's an important thing at a chemical level. So oxytocin. Do y'all have any questions? How many hormones do you have for Wednesday? Where are they all from? Why are they being released from the pituitary? Because the hypothalamus is commanding it. I have a couple of things to let you all know about. I'm going to try to, with the Zoom, we're going to see about these recordings. They're going to be a little bit different, but we hope it's fine. I have that y'all saw where the lab thing is up there. You know what 10 organs you can already start looking at where they are. We'll have talked about all of them before we have a lab quiz. Those of you who had me last time have the textbook. You know it's in the first atlas. Isn't it in Atlas A? Is that where it is? Where you have directional terms, proximal, distal, inferior, superior, medial, lateral, and regions of the body. Y'all have it in your textbook, but you'll also have an exercise under this visible body. Your first quiz in this class will be next week on the visible body information. Practice it, play with it, and I haven't even posted them yet, so don't look for them yet, but I'm going to do it by the end of the day. I'm going to have that in there. That is for you to play with, practice with, and then the quiz I give you will be on what you could have seen in that visible body, but you will have had to have looked at it. You would have had to have done the exercises. Do I have any questions before y'all go? Any questions? Now, usually we will be here at least until about 11, and maybe some days, a few days, a little bit after that, but that's how these Monday Wednesdays are going to go, okay? Fair enough? No questions for me? All right. Okay, thank you, John. Guys, this plus you signing the roster or signing in on that roster. This is going to be your attendance for today. If you decide to stay in this class, I need to have a contract, just a signed contract from all of you that you understood the syllabus, you understood what's required. Everybody remembers in my class, there's no such things as electronic devices, right? Ever. No phones out there. We're done today. I'll see you Wednesday. And you will have a discussion board for today. Remember, those discussion boards, I'm posting saying you don't see the other answers when you post yours. Yeah. I'm going to put it I have to access my Of course. You never have to ask me one. Do we always have lecture quizzes? The only time we don't have lecture quizzes is when we have a scheduled test. That's the only time. Yes. Micro starts at noon and it's in room 65. Go. All right, let's see how this is going to do. So our 10 morning quiz in class in the